Why People Dying of Hypothermia Seek Enclosed Spaces, written by polonium poisoning. If you enjoy this story, please check out my description. There will be a link to more of their content. Life is unfair. Jason and I were best friends from the moment I put my eyes on him in kindergarten. Over 10 years later, we were still inseparable. He grew up to be tall and strong type, while I was his nerdy pair. The other boys knew better to make fun of me due to my glasses and little stuttering. They never picked on me, of course, because of Jason. He was my protector. Jason was a leader, and everyone adored him. Still, he chose to spend his time with me, a completely average boy, uninteresting even, who liked to read. He was nice to other people, but he never took the bullshit from the other strong boys or popular girls. He always defended the weak. You couldn't help but love that about him. I still remember how my heart pounded when he invited me to spend the weekend at his parents' cabin in the mountains. It would be just the two of us, his sister Lydia and her boyfriend Benji. So, in my juvenile mind, it was like Jason and I were a couple as well. Only this thought made me happy enough. I would never have the guts to make a move. To be 16 and in love. Lydia, the most experienced one behind a wheel, drove us there. A light snow was falling, beautifully sprinkling the dark brown wood of the cabin with gleaming white. The cabin wasn't fancy, but it was cozy and well kept. Lydia made us all some eggnog, and we all sank on a fluffy couch full of warm blankets, half watching a movie, half watching the snow peacefully falling down across the window. I certainly drifted off for a while, because after that, I only remember Jason inviting me to go outside, his handsome face a little bit red. Lydia and Benji presumably had gone to bed. I immediately agreed, and we headed to the front door, joyful and carefree. It didn't snow often where we lived, and when it did, it soon turned into grimy pieces of ice, so it was no fun. So we took our time throwing snowballs, making a snowman, using our bodies to create angels. The whole thing. Let's go snowboarding a little, Jason suggested, so excited that I couldn't say no. Okay, but I've never done that. I smiled back to him. Don't worry, I'll teach you, he said, and showed me how to do it. It wasn't a very nasty accident. I rolled down a small cliff, maybe 1.5 meters below. My leg hurt in a way that I suspected skiing the next day was off my list, but I wasn't badly injured. But Jason was incredibly worried. He panicked and blamed himself, and I was the one who had to calm him down. Hey, it's okay, really. Just go get the others and a rope and you'll hoist me back in no time. The snow had intensified, so going to the cabin, getting help, and walking back to my location would take no less than 40 minutes, and he knew it. I can't leave you alone. I'll just jump down there, pull you up, and then climb. This sounded like a reasonable, good plan. A plan that would only get the two of us mildly injured. But as soon as he jumped down to the little platform where I was, it gave in. It was only hardened snow. We fell together, and we kept falling for a while until my head hit a rock. When I managed to open my eyes again, my head was on Jason's lap. He smiled at me with a glint of relief, but you could see he was still mostly freaking out. There was coagulated blood all over my hair, and it was so cold. I got up slowly, still dizzy. One of his arms was bent on a weird angle. What's that? Where are we? I asked, unable to hide how worried I was about him. After we fell, I saw this big rock. I thought it could be a little cave, so I brought us here. I'm sorry it's just a big stupid rock. I don't see anything else, just some stupid trees. They could shelter us from the wind, but that's not the main problem. We were both cold. You brought me here with just one arm? Don't worry, my two legs are fine. Can I check your phone? Mine broke when I fell butt first. I'm so sorry I put us in this situation, Liam. No, I'm sorry I suck at snowboarding. My phone was dead. There was nowhere safe to be, so we stayed there, under the large boulder, trying not to think that we would die, unless Lydia realized we went missing and quickly asked for rescue, and then rescue found us soon. Liam? Yeah? We have to save our body heat, so is it okay if I move closer? I know you wouldn't, but please don't call me a fag. I smiled as Jason embraced me. I'm glad you know I wouldn't, I replied, intertwining my cold fingers with his colder ones. Will you forgive me if you die? Of course I will. In fact, I have nothing to forgive. Nothing. I brought us here. At least I'm with you. Despite the terrible cold, I felt myself blushing. I mean, you didn't want to leave me alone, right? I'd be more scared on my own. Despite being gentle, I always saw Jason as a tough guy, so I didn't know what to do when he broke down crying, his body trembling both from the contact with the snow and from his feelings. Now that my mind is clearing, I see how terribly dumb it was. I'm so sorry for the snowboarding. It was fucking stupid. Truth is, Liam, maybe we'll die, so whatever. I am kind of a fag after all. After you fell asleep, I had a lot to drink, so I would have the guts to tell you that. I have feelings for you, the ones I was supposed to have for girls. It's weird and sad to think that, but I never felt happier. That was the happiest moment of my life. For a minute, it felt like we could go through anything. We would climb back and live, then get married and take our Pomeranians for a walk inside a Chanel tote, or whatever men in a long-term happy relationship do. But as I raised my eyes to look into his, I noticed his lips were blue, and so were mine. Minutes felt like hours, and hours felt like centuries. We both shivered uncontrollably, but despite having a better build than mine, Jason had a lot to drink, so his temperature-regulated system was fucked up, and vasodilation caused him to feel warmer than he actually was, when he was actually losing body heat faster. At least it probably means he suffered less than I did. We held each other as a desperate last attempt to avoid death, or postpone hypothermia enough so anyone could find us. Everything was so dark and quiet. I kept pretending to myself someone was going to come for us any minute now, but there was only cold and stillness for miles. When Jason started undressing, I begged him to stop. I told him it doesn't make any sense and that he'll feel colder faster, but he just screamed that his clothes were wet and just so cold. I started taking off my clothes too, but then I realized that it was even colder without them. If Jason couldn't realize this, then his mind was probably gone by now. Being a bookworm, I had read about paradoxical undressing. My heart was beating so fast, both from fear of death and from hypothermia itself. My body was giving it all to try to survive just a little more. Not long after taking off his clothes, when all his skin was terribly inflamed due to cold eczema, Jason started digging the snow right under the base of the boulder with his bare hands, then forcing his body inside the small opening. I heard his bones breaking, but he didn't care anymore. He had to stick his large body in the tiny, confined space. This phenomenon is known as terminal burrowing. I'm not sure of the moment he died. He kept talking to himself, but in irregular intervals, whispering like a mental patient. My consciousness was in and out, and I was thankful that sometimes I had the joy of forgetting the affliction of having a body. Then something completely different from every sensation I ever had started inside of me. It was like an eel moving inside of me, something long, electric, and completely repulsing. It started on my bowels, like my very intestine loosened up from my guts and it meandered around my whole body. It was disgusting and it hurt, but it was also incredibly soothing, until it reached my brain. Then it started spilling the most unholy words, images, and thoughts my mind could ever conceive. It told me that, if ever left this place alive, it would take over my body and do unspeakable things to others, that I'd be nothing but its puppet. That's when I started desperately trying to fit my body inside a very tiny space too. As you can see, Lydia was able to send help, and I lived, but I wish I didn't. If it wasn't for the alcohol, if it wasn't for his crush, if it wasn't for me, her brother would still be alive. Losing my best friend and prospect lover was terrible, but it wasn't the most terrible thing that happened to me in the mountains. You see, one might think that the terminal burrowing comes from the basic instinct of looking for a shelter when your body temperature is too low, but after that day, I know it's something much more primal and eerie. We know it's useless to protect ourselves from the cold outside. We're just trying to make ourselves disappear, afraid of what just awoke inside.